time for Chris Abel, all things tech expert, and all-around nerdy lover of electronical things. Pretty sure I just made up a word. Chris, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you very much. After being off last week, it's been a couple of weeks since we had a chance to chat, so it's nice to see your face, sir.
Oh, thank you.
Very good. Well, this is Chris. This is not a robot. We've heard many conversations about AI replacing jobs. Stats say that it might not be AI that's doing it, but robots are on the rise. The attack of the machines, Chris.
It's something I've been noticing is that almost every week there have been companies announcing the launch of a new robot entering into the world. And so I'm paying very close attention to that. And we're now getting government figures that show that within the manufacturing industry, that they're measuring every 10,000 workers that are reported as having employment, how many of those workers are robots? Well, the number one country for this is South Korea. Right now, for every 10,000 workers working in the manufacturing industry in South Korea, 1,012 are not human, they're robots. So that's the highest, that's the number one country in the world, followed quickly by Singapore, China, and Germany. The United States comes in as number 10 on the list in the world. For every 10,000 workers in the manufacturing industry in the US, 295 are not human, they're actually robots. Here in Canada, it's 225 that are not humans, that are just robots as well.
So would we include those as the classic automotive assembly line welding arm machines that zip over here and zap that, and then the other arm comes in and grabs the car and flips it over? Would those count as a robot?
That's right. The classic sort of automotive robots that help on assembly lines, but also it's the rise of delivery robots. It's the rise of robots that work in warehouses that do pick, pack, and ship operations. There's been a huge demand for robots that can wheel up to the back end of a truck and just offload the truck of all of its cartons and parcels and then load it back up and send it on the way. A job I've done as a teenager. So it's nice to know that that job's been replaced by robots. But yes, we're seeing a rise in terms of robots as well as in restaurants that can actually do a quick prep of food, that kind of thing.
Have you seen some of those inside the warehouse videos about these new, like how the robots are moving to pick up packages and move them, and this sort of grid network of these robots that are loading, and like, it's amazing stuff.
Yes, especially because you're seeing robots that can interact with each other, but also other human employees as well. That's been a big focus, making sure these robots aren't just friendly to each other, but are friendly to other warehouse workers. It's kind of amazing. And one of the other things that this list doesn't include, though, are the robots that are entering into our home, the vacuum cleaners and stuff like that. And what was hilarious was that this past Tuesday, when you had the massive earthquake in California, people took to social media because they noticed that at one home, the earthquake had caused an opening, and their vacuum robot escaped. It was going down the street all by itself, exploring. It was amazing how far and fast this little robot all by itself was roaming around on the streets. And so I find that funny, and a lot of people on social media did, but it sort of is an indicator that as we see this robot density, that's the terminology used here for more robots in our society, that every time there's going to be a major storm, a hurricane, or an earthquake, one of the side effects we're going to see are going to be small little robots sort of aimlessly roaming the streets.
Escaping, and nobody knows where to send them home again. You're going to have a collar on your robot or something so they know where to send them. That's good stuff. Chris Abel is here. I'm Shane Hewitt. If you broke your things, you can now fix it. Well, kind of, not really, but in principle, yes.
In principle, yes. And that's something that's very specific to Canada. We are the first country that has introduced legislation, bills C-244 and C-294, that specifically now allow anyone who wants to repair their own devices, their own machines, you can do so without there being any kind of penalty. See, up until now, what a lot of tech companies have done is they've used the kind of laws that were put in place to protect against copyright infringement when it comes to piracy. And they're saying, well, okay, this now applies to the software we use in refrigerators, in smartphones, that sort of become a barrier that people can't fix their own devices because then it counts as sort of software piracy if they end up breaking the software code. So in Canada, these two bills have been passed, which now means that it doesn't count as copyright infringement anymore. You are allowed to take your refrigerator, to take your microwave. If you want to try to fix it yourself rather than buy a brand new one, you're totally allowed to do so. This is good not just for consumers, for people like us, but also it's specifically really good for farmers who have a lot of farming equipment where this has become a big barrier, as well as hospitals for a lot of their equipment. They want to be able to not just have to take it to a licensed vendor to have a repair of those things. They want to be able to go to whoever is the best vendor that can offer the best price. And so this is something specific to Canada to be very proud of, but finally that change has happened.
So imagine that one as being like some sort of secret key, right? Like you have part A communicates to part B, and then the company would put in some sort of key code to allow the two to talk together. Or
Correct.
because maybe part B has some top secret coding in it that they don't want anybody to see. So if you plug into it, you can't see what the coding is. And that's one of the things that they argued, saying, well, then people can steal our secrets if they're able to get into the unit. And now they're saying just because part A is broken, that doesn't mean you lock everybody out from fixing all of it, and you're the only one who can fix it to protect your stuff. So there are some legitimate thievery things that could happen in this, but the reality is in the world of waste and the cost. Yes. I mean, how much does it cost to get your stuff fixed at the Apple Store? And then they've got sensors. They used to have sensors to tell if somebody else was even in there. Right?
Well, and like the problem is that when you are forced to have to go to a licensed vendor to have your stuff repaired, then they have a routine psychologically where they can try to guide you towards just replacing the device rather than fixing it. They can say, oh, it's not worth fixing your iPhone. We've got a new model. You should just go to that one. So it's also a battle towards what's called planned obsolescence. And so it is an important step. It's a minor one. Most of us may not encounter it too often, but it's important to know that this is happening in the background.
Well, anyone who's broken their phone and been told, yeah, well, for $50, I'll give you $50 for it. You can buy a new one at the store. Yeah. Okay, we only have 30 seconds or less. Chris, I'm sorry, but 3D printing a Christmas tree is cool.
It is. It's something that's available. Thingiverse, which is a place or a location where you can purchase and download files if you have a 3D printer. There's a company called 3D Central, and they offer files where you can actually 3D print your own Christmas tree. And they've got a technique that makes it look very good in terms of the pine needles that gives it that furry look to the Christmas tree. So they've done a great job. Thing.
The details that you can get in a 3D printer now are so cool. You can literally get pine needles. So go look it up. There you go. If you just go follow Chris Abel, search him on to Twitter, you'll get all the links and all the info. He's got all that for you. He publishes it every day. I'll retweet it. I am Shane Hewitt off of mine when he does it too. Thank you so much for being here. As always, my friend, I do appreciate you.
Take care.
It's actually a really good idea to follow Chris on socials, on X and all those things, because he's going to be there. And he takes this whole conversation and adds a little bit more information to it. It's good. It's really good. He does a great job.